Picture this. Your alarm goes off, not late, disciplined late. You don't snooze, you sit up, grab your phone, and for just a second, you feel proud. You make coffee the right way. Maybe you journal. Maybe you stretch. Maybe you open a notes app titled Goals. And in that moment, before the day even starts, you feel like the kind of person who's getting ahead. That's the moment I want to talk about. Because for years, I lived inside that moment. I built careful morning routines. I optimized them. I protected them. I felt productive before 8 a.m. And yet, my income didn't really move. My stress didn't really drop. My leverage didn't really increase. Here's the betrayal most people never see. You thought your morning routine was building your future. It isn't. It's often replacing the uncomfortable actions that actually would. By the end of this, you'll see mornings differently, and you know exactly what to do next time you're tempted to optimize instead of advance. Let me slow this down, because this isn't you being lazy or stupid. This is design. The seam usually looks like discipline, but psychologically, something else is happening. I call it productive displacement. Productive displacement is when visible, repeatable effort crowds out high-leverage, uncomfortable progress while still giving your brain the reward signal of "I'm doing the work." Your brain doesn't care what moved the needle. It cares that something felt effortful and intentional. So the routine becomes the win, and that's where things quietly go wrong. Because routines are safe. They're controllable. They're repeatable. You can succeed at them every single day without risking rejection, failure, or identity damage. But leverage rarely looks like a routine. Leverage looks like sending the email you've been avoiding. It looks like asking for a higher rate. It looks like cutting a project that feeds your ego but not your bank account. It looks like sitting in silence, thinking about the one decision you keep dodging. Those actions don't fit neatly into a 6:30 a.m. checklist. So what happens instead is subtle. Day by day, the routine becomes the proof that you're serious, and the harder decisions get postponed, not consciously, but structurally. This is where the escalation starts. At the daily level, you invest 60 to 90 minutes into preparation, planning, learning, consuming how to optimize content. None of it is useless, but none of it forces movement. At the medium level, weeks go by without decisive bets. Income stays tied to effort instead of systems. You're busy, but replaceable. Skilled, but not scarce. And at the life level, something painful creeps in. You look back and think, I've been working on myself for years. Why does it still feel like I'm treading water? That's not because you lack discipline. It's because discipline got pointed at the wrong target. Morning routines are incredibly good at shaping identity. They are terrible at guaranteeing outcomes. And once your identity becomes, I'm the kind of person who has a great morning routine, abandoning it feels like loss, even if keeping it is costing you progress. That's the trap. I didn't see it until I noticed something uncomfortable. The days that actually changed my income, my trajectory, or my stress levels almost never started with a perfect routine. They started with friction. They started with a decision I didn't want to make. They started with me breaking the routine to deal with reality. And once I saw that pattern, I couldn't unsee it. Because the routine wasn't neutral. It was protective. It was insulating me from the very moves that would have made it unnecessary. That's where this stops being about mornings and starts being about money, psychology, and systems. Once you notice productive displacement, you start seeing how it scales. Not in dramatic ways, in quiet, compounding ones. Here's how the escalation really plays out. At first, the routine just delays things by a day. I'll think about that decision tomorrow. Let me start strong. Then it becomes a week. I'm not ready yet. I need more clarity. Then a month. I'm building the foundation. Nothing is wrong enough to trigger panic, so nothing changes. This is where psychology quietly locks the door behind you. The first bias at work is identity consistency. Once you see yourself as disciplined, intentional, or high-performing, your brain starts protecting that identity. And the easiest way to protect it is to keep doing the behaviors that signal discipline, even if they no longer produce results. Breaking the routine feels like becoming sloppy, reckless, like losing control. But that's a lie your nervous system tells to avoid risk. The second bias is loss aversion. You have invested time, energy, maybe even money into crafting the perfect morning. Courses, apps, books, tools. Walking away from that feels like admitting it didn't pay off, and humans hate that feeling. So instead, we double down. We refine the routine, add a habit, wake up earlier, track more metrics, all while the actual leverage, income negotiation, skill monetization, strategic pruning, sits untouched. Now zoom out one more level, because this doesn't happen in a vacuum. There's a system that quietly benefits from you staying right here. A creator can sell you a planner, a journal prompt, a habit tracker, a 30-day reset. They cannot sell you the messy, uncomfortable process of making fewer but bolder decisions. Platforms reward consistency, not courage. Algorithms love daily rituals. They don't love videos titled, "I cut my workload in half by saying no to 3 people." So the incentive stack looks like this. You get a dopamine hit from checking boxes, creators get engagement from routine content, apps get retention from daily use, and the system keeps you busy enough to feel responsible, but not dangerous enough to disrupt anything. Again, this isn't a conspiracy, it's alignment. No one has to trick you. The structure does the work. Let me make the money part concrete without fake stats or dramatic math. Assume this. Your routine takes 1 hour a day, 5 days a week. That's about 250 hours a year. Now assume, conservatively, that those 250 hours could have produced just one high-leverage move if they were reallocated. One renegotiation, one new pricing decision, one skill turned into an offer. Not a guarantee, just a possibility. If that single move increased your annual income by even a small margin, a few thousand spread across the year, the opportunity cost of protecting the routine becomes very real. That's where the $5,000 a year idea comes from. Not as a promise, as a lens. It's the cost of misplaced certainty. Because routines feel certain, leverage never does. And that's why so many smart, hardworking people stay capped. They're optimizing for feeling in control, not for changing their position. I saw this most clearly when I compared 2 types of mornings in my own life. On routine-heavy mornings, I felt calm, organized, slightly superior. On leverage-heavy mornings, I felt tense, exposed, behind. Guess which ones actually moved my life forward? The routine mornings made me feel like a professional. The leverage mornings made me become one. And once you see that difference, the myth cracks. Because the real dividing line isn't discipline versus lazy, it's ritualized effort versus decisive action. And the system will always nudge you toward the first, because it's predictable, repeatable, and profitable. Which brings us to the mistakes almost everyone makes once they buy into the morning routine myth, even the smart ones. Let's talk about the mistakes because this is where things finally click for most people. I'm not talking about obvious stuff like waking up too late or scrolling your phone. I mean the mistakes that feel responsible while quietly holding you in place. Mistake 1. Believing consistency automatically compounds. Consistency only compounds after leverage exists. Repeating a low-impact action doesn't make it high impact. It just makes it familiar. And familiarity is often mistaken for progress. Mistake 2. Confusing preparation with positioning. Reading, planning, journaling, learning, these are all fine. But if they're not directly connected to a decision that changes your position, they're just warm-ups that never lead to the game. Mistake 3. Protecting the routine at all costs. This one is sneaky. You start saying no to meetings, conversations, or opportunities because they disrupt your morning. The routine becomes sacred, even when reality is knocking. Mistake 4. Using the routine as proof of seriousness. I can't be failing. Look how disciplined I am. That thought is comforting and dangerous, because seriousness without results becomes a trap. Mistake 5. Assuming discomfort means inefficiency. Leverage feels chaotic. It rarely fits into neat blocks of time. So people default back to what feels clean and controlled, even if it's less effective. And sometimes there's a sixth mistake hiding underneath all of them. Believing that if you just optimize yourself enough, the system will reward you. It won't. Systems reward leverage, not virtue. So what do you do instead? You don't need to delete your morning routine. You need a defense playbook. Rules that stop routines from cannibalizing progress. Here's mine. Rule 1, no leverage, no routine. Before you do anything habitual, ask, what is the one decision or action today that could change my position? If you haven't named it, the routine waits. Rule 2, one uncomfortable action before comfort. This might be an email, a conversation, a cut, a commitment, something that carries risk. Do that first, even if it ruins the perfect morning. All free. Cap preparation time. Set a hard limit. 30 minutes, 45, whatever you choose. Preparation expands to fill the space you give it and then steals from action. Rule 4, track outcomes, not streaks. Streaks make you feel disciplined. Outcomes tell you if anything is working. If income, autonomy, or stress levels aren't moving over months, something upstream is wrong. Rule 5, break the routine on purpose. At least once a week, violate it deliberately to follow reality instead of ritual. This keeps the routine from becoming your identity. Notice what this playbook does. It doesn't make you lazier. It makes you sharper. It shifts discipline from maintaining optics to protecting leverage. And here's the identity shift that actually matters. Be the person who uses structure as a tool, not as a shield. Be the person who's willing to feel messy in the short term to avoid being stuck in the long term. Be the person who measures days by what moved, not what was completed. Morning routines aren't evil, but they're not neutral either. If you let them, they'll quietly absorb your ambition and give you a sense of progress in return. If you control them, they can support decisions that actually change your life. That difference is where most people miscalculate. Not once, but every morning. If this clarified something you've been feeling but couldn't name, stay sharp with me. Subscribe. Share this with someone who's optimizing hard, but not moving much. Not to motivate them, to wake them up.